Hey, what's up, everyone? It's your two favorite fight fans, CT and DJ, on That's a Tap, here to break down what was another huge UFC pay-per-view. Madison Square Garden 295 had everything that we want in a pay-per-view. A lot of talking points, a lot of questions moving ahead. We'll unpack it. But firstly, DJ, good to see ya. How you feeling?
Good to good to see you, my man. Feeling great, feeling good. Hey, that card was so good. I had to watch it twice, which I have. I think, man, Madison Square Garden has historically, traditionally, always delivered. I think every card since that McGregor Alvarez card at Madison Square Garden, at the mecca of combat sports, as being top notch. Man, it's crazy to think the UFC was not allowed to host shows in New York, uh, and then from there to now find out that the top three gates have been for the UFC for Madison Square Garden is insane to think, given all the boxing bouts that we've seen there, all the other sporting events we've seen there, the top three are UFC events. How crazy is that? And I think that kind of speaks volumes to how big the sport has grown and how big the UFC is. And also, how good these events and the fight cards have been. It's become a tradition now to look forward to the Madison Square Garden fight, even when the year starts, which I'm pretty sure we will when in the next year when we preview the year up ahead. We'll touch on. Look, I'm excited for that Madison Square Garden um, card because it's always going to be that brand attached to it. Man, I think maybe there was one sort of. No, I wouldn't use the word weak, but I think it was like a short notice fight that they put together for the heavyweight defense between Derek Lewis and Daniel Cormier at MSG. But outside of that, it's been some pretty strong cards. Even with this card, there was a lot of uh, adversity that this card faced. Just 1 week after we spoke on air and said, "Hey, we don't want to jinx this next card. This the Madison Square Garden. That's as big as it gets." Jon Jones, the greatest of all time, coming back. We found out that he obviously, fortunately, tore his pectoral muscle, and yeah, we were. I wouldn't say it was impactful anyway because we still got two great championship fights, and the card lived up to it, man. I think it was obviously a top heavy card, but the main event and the core main event, there's so much you can talk about. They delivered. None of these fights, I think, bar a couple of fights, went the distance. Um, I think the entire main card was KOs and TKOs, so finishes. So yeah, man, pretty great to see. Yeah, I'm excited to unpack it with you. What did you think of the card, CD? Tell me that.
Yeah, I agree with you. First and foremost, like another pay per view where they had to make the most of what they had in short term notice, and we always we're thankful for these big
Yeah,
name fighters taking short notice fights to make sure
yeah,
that the event is still great. And we're no doubt going to talk a lot about Tom Aspinall and his big win and what's next.
yeah,
But yeah, overall, I liked it. How can you not? Madison Square Garden, big names. Obviously, not what we
yeah,
wanted, but we're definitely going to give the card a grade. You always
yeah,
throw it to me and say like,
yeah,
what would you grade the card?
yeah.
So, do you want to do that now or a bit later?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear what the great CT's got for this card. UFC 295, Pereira versus Kukashka, Madison Square Garden. What's your rating?
Yeah, it gets a solid 8.5 for me.
Nice,
I mean,
nice, man.
it maybe yeah, a bit more than solid, but real quick is obviously it delivered in terms of stoppages, finishes, and it also delivered in terms of like welcoming in the new breed, and we're going to talk about it more.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, man, 100%. I think, as opposed to the last pay per view, which obviously had Alexander Volkanovski stepping in on short notice, the main event in this instance, it just got promoted. It was already the core main event. It was already a 5 round fight. So they had the UFC had the luxury of maintaining that fight because it was such a strong fight in itself. They were able to promote it to the main event, which the MMA fans loved, and it's evident by the numbers that we're seeing, being a sellout, card and all that. Funnily enough, two of the three top sellout fights belonged to Alex Pereira headlining or co-headlining it. This one and the one with Izzy last year, and obviously the number one with no doubts there was Conor McGregor when he went for his double champ status. Man, yeah, look, I'm with you. I think it was a strong card. I think 8.5 is a very solid score. I'm probably with you on that. I think, given if, say, Jon Jones, think of this, all this, and then adding Jon Jones on top. Obviously, we wouldn't have got the Aspinall Pavlovich fight, but, think of that. That probably elevates it a little bit more, given the legendary status of those two fighters. We didn't get Stipe inside the cage, but we did get him outside the cage. Some controversy because he was limping. Then I know we spoke off air, but when we go into sort of what's next for the heavyweight division, we'll talk about that, talk about what we think of that matchup being kept on and moving forward. But man, let's start with the main event, right? That's where everything was. That's where the eyeballs were on. I mean, man, you gotta say that intensity from sort of Pereira first walking in to the cage, and we know sort of his pre-fight rituals during his walkout, and that very intimidating war cry, you can say. And then Jiri comes out with this sort of, I don't know, man, like some Viking like music and sort of his persona. I was just enthralled. And then you get into the cage, and all these guys do is just stare at each other. It's just like Yui comes in, goes on his knee, and then does whatever he does, and then stares at Alex Pereira, who's just staring back. Seems like that's what he does best, man. It was intimidating. I was like millions of miles away watching it on the screen. I was intimidated. I was terrified. I could feel the tension in that cage, but again, there was no animosity. There was no bad blood. It was pure respect between two phenomenal martial artists. Uh, Absolute. It set the tone, man. It set the tone for that event. You were just on the edge of your seat. You weren't sure what was going to happen. We know both of these guys have that power to switch the other person off, switch anyone off. Right? We've known of Alex Pereira's legendary left hook, which played a big part in the finish. We also know of Giri's unorthodox style and sort of his power, what he's able to, and his ability to recover again played a factor. With a lot of people arguing that he wasn't given that opportunity to recover. Before we get into the nitty gritty of the main event, what did you think of that main event overall?
Yeah, man, it delivered in spades, like you said, in terms of two guys that I have the utmost respect for, a knockout power, skill, just real martial artists. The come up, obviously, Alex Pereira, I'm a little bit more familiar with him, obviously, in his body of work being, in the middleweight division and his rivalry with Izzy. But to me, that just made this a lot more intriguing in terms to see how it was going to go. DJ and Yuri being out for a while, I didn't feel like we were just saying this off air. I didn't feel like this was going to go the distance. Like it was going to be who strikes cleanly first,
Yep.
and he's going to finish it. The stoppage, I've got to give you my thoughts on that. Of course, it's on everyone's mouth. Obviously, traditionally, would love to see it go a little longer, but some knockouts look different. Like that's all I'll say. Like he was out, and sometimes all it takes is a split second. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, man. Look, I mean, I think the fight in the entirety of it, like, look, even before the fight, same thing. I was thinking, there's no way this fight goes the distance. They both, and I did think it was going to be a strike heavy fight, but Yuri's going to mix it up, which he did in the first round, which I, in my opinion, thought he scored that round. There was that, it was, I don't know if it was counted as a knockdown, but a heavy leg kick sends Yuri to the canvas, but he pops up straight away. But Pereira did some good damage on that lead leg. You could see the welt, you could see the swelling, and you could see the discomfort with Prohaska trying to use that lead leg to launch his strikes. But then obviously when he took him to the ground, I think at one point he had a partial guillotine locked in, which is Pereira. But Yuri was able to get out of that, and then there was a big slam onto the canvas, and then he controlled him on the ground for a while. We also did see Pereira come back up, which was very impressive to see, because the mindset or the general thought process is that Alex Pereira is predominantly a striker who has a lot of weakness in that grappling department, and see that growth, to be able to see him, and he speaks volumes to the work that he's put in with Glover Teixeira, who's well known for his grappling prowess. To be able to withstand guys like Jiri, guys like Jan Blachowicz, who, if you recall, his more to victory against Israel Adesanya was the wrestling, right? Whereas he couldn't employ it, and now Jiri, same thing. We saw Alex Pereira get up, and he's only going to get better. Right. So yeah, man, it was very impressive, and you spoke about his body of work, and how impressive is that? Be a double champ in Glory Kickboxing, to be inducted in the Hall of Fame there, now to be able to do that in such a short amount of time, so quickly, and to get these accolades, amazing, amazing story. But man, the stoppage itself in question, obviously, yeah. Look, in first glance, I thought, oh, come on, like Yuri's getting up. This is as you know, I'm a massive fan of both guys. I'm a massive fan of Yuri Prochazka. I think he's a true martial artist. He's a samurai. He belongs to that rare breed of fighters, honor before anything else. And I think Pereira too is the same brand. I think that's why this fight was so intriguing. Like two absolute warriors. And that, man, like I think with that, all that in mind, and I feel like Mark Goddard is finding himself in this kind of situation a lot more as of recently. But yeah, look, man, I, you could have maybe let it go. I don't think it would have changed the course of the fight. I just think Pereira would have got the finish with continuous ground and pound. He would have just gone from there to ground and pound, which he was doing. I had no issues with the stoppage though, because when I rewatched it today, I could see if you watch closely, obviously it gets clipped, the right hand, then the legendary left hook. Just moments before that, Jiri had Pereira hurt. And I thought, okay, the finish is imminent now. He's going to come in. He's going to swarm him now. But, Pereira manages to, elite strikers. Pereira manages to evade and counter strike, clip him, sends him to the canvas, floors him. And then obviously Jiri quickly tries to recuperate where those elbows and hammer fists come into play. And at that very moment, just before he collapses to the canvas, you see his hands go limp. And I think that was the cue for Mark Goddard. We saw that at the end of the day, the ref's there to protect your fighter. I think that was the instinct that he went with, and he's like, better now than later. So he jumps in and stops the fight. We've seen Jiri in past fights where he's been in similar situations, and he's come back and has managed to win those fights. Dominic Reyes being one. Glover Teixeira being another one as well, like going to the absolute trenches and then coming back from there is his trademark. Having said that, though, this is a fight, and that is the rules that you play with, and sometimes they are not in your favor. Right? In all honesty, you could also argue that Mark Goddard was, doing it with the fighter's best interest in mind, and I mean, it was hard to argue that if you had let that fight go, I think there was another 30 seconds left, which is a lot of time inside that cage when you're hurt and you've got an absolute monster of an opponent on top of you. I just don't think that would have changed anything. I think with Pereira's power, right, he's not Dominic Reyes, he's not Glover Teixeira, he's a very powerful individual, and I think he would have switched him off. That's what I think. Yeah, and man, I think this is why people are a fan of Yuri Prochazka as well. The way he handled himself after the defeat. I mean, who says straight immediately in the octagon interview to say, "Hey, I was out. I think I have no issues with the stoppage." I think that put a stop immediately to any sort of noise that was starting to come out. And yeah, look, at the end of the day, man, two absolute warriors. I think they'll fight again. Absolutely will. I think Yuri's only going to get better. I'm excited for the return. I think he's going to come back with a vengeance. I think he's going to run through a couple of people. It's exciting, man. Like, and I think Pereira's obviously going to do some work. He's been very active, and that doesn't get spoken of much, but he's been very active too. I mean, to be able to accomplish what he did in the middleweight division, and now to come up to light heavyweight and win a belt, man, a thing of fairy tale stuff. Like, that's what it is. But what's next? That's the big question. There's a lot going on. There was a call out in that post-fight interview. There's another champ that vacated the title. So, man, what's next? What's next, CD? What's next for this light heavyweight division?
See, that's what really gets me more excited, because yeah, I agree with you, DJ, in terms of we'll see these two again, and much respect to Yuri because he's been out for so long, and obviously Pereira is just moving up, just getting his feet wet in the light heavyweight. So what's next? Look, I think given the fact that this was able to happen, you've got to then honour the Jamal Hill.
Yeah,
I think once that can happen,
Yeah,
and Alex can either sit aside and just wait for that.
yeah,
That would be my number one preference. Obviously, then Israel Adesanya. We talked about that off air, DJ. I feel like we'll see Adesanya next year. I don't feel like he's going to take another whole
no,
2024 off. And I think maybe motivation,
yeah,
speaking here, but seeing Alex lift the belt in this new
yep,
division while Izzy's coming off a loss, this could spur him on to
yep,
really motivate him more and get the best out of it. So
yep.
what do you say to that, DJ?
Man, look, first of all, I think Izzy's playing with all of us, saying that he's going to only come back in 2027. He's too good of a martial artist to let his prime go like that. I think it's a lot more he's got to offer, a lot more accolades he's going to collect in the coming years. I just think it's going to take some time to, get his thoughts together. And I think we're going to see him next year. I do believe that. I think, look, he's a showman, and he obviously, has a mind for these things. He's very cerebral. I think this is also part of that tactic. I think we do see him. To be honest, I do think we see him climb that ranks again. I think we see him at the top again. But man, we spoke about it when we I don't know if you recall this, city, but when we recap UFC Miami, when Izzy got his revenge finally and reclaimed that title and knocked out Alex Pereira, and one of the questions we had was, will we see this matchup again? And one thing we discussed was like, well, the only way we see this is if for some reason Alex Pereira moves up, gets the light heavyweight title, and this was in April this year. We said if he moves up, gets the title, then there is a possibility, because you end the trilogy. Now Izzy's fighting for a higher stake, which he has pursued previously. Now he gets to pursue that against his arch rivals, but also for the light heavyweight belt. It just makes it a lot more better. I think it's an intriguing matchup. I think it happens, right? But I think, like Dana White said, like if Israel Adesanya had the belt, middleweight belt, it makes it an exciting champ fight. But that's not the case. So I think Israel Adesanya will have to fight someone in light heavyweight before he probably goes for the title. Although Pereira said, "I'll give you the shot. Don't worry about it," which obviously irked Jamal Hill, who was cage side. And I'm with you. I think the next fight I want to see is Jamal Hill, right? I mean, part of being a champion and that championship reign is eliminating all doubt, right? So you've obviously um, won against a former champ. You got another champ who didn't lose the belt. You gotta put an end to that story. Either we need to see how that fight plays out. We need to see who the definitive champ is, and then we see probably the easy matchup. But it's also not to forget, like since the departure of Jon Jones from the light heavyweight division, we've seen a lot of movement, and I think it's for the better. To be honest, I don't think it's a lot more excitement now, because it's kind of like a pass the chair or something. You can't not pass the chair. I don't know what I'm saying, but you know what I mean, right? It's just we've had so many light heavyweight champs since Jon Jones. We've had Jan Blachowicz, we've had Glover Teixeira, we've had Jiri Prochazka, right? Jamal Hill, and now the fifth one is Alex Pereira. Kind of obviously speaks to the volume of the talent of Jon Jones, but also it's kind of opened up the division. We've got a scary individual called Magomed Ankalaev, hails from Dagestan. Their wrestling is a lot more different to sort of what the likes of Jan Blachowicz and Yuri Prakash can them bring. So that's a very challenging matchup for Alex Pereira as well. There's a lot of challenges out there as well. And you've got your man Johnny Walker, who's obviously they're gonna run that back, Ankalaev Walker, and we'll have a definitive result there. And then that's another number one contender right there. So there's going to be contenders coming up as well. So there's a lot going on in that light heavyweight division. But hey, I think the next fight should be Jamal Hill versus Alex Pereira. But man, while we were saying that, I just realized how active Alex Pereira has been. So he fought in April, and then he fought Jan Blachowicz in Salt Lake City, right? I think in July. And then now he's fought in Madison Square Garden and won the championships. He's 2-1 in 2023. I think, obviously, if he had won against Izzy in April, it probably would have been contending for that fighter of the year. But again, the losses define, like how you come back from losses define the championship medal. So yeah, man, pretty excited for Alex Pereira. Pretty excited for the return of Yuri Prochazka as well. Pretty excited for that division, which is the light heavyweight division. So man, let's go.
Let's go indeed, man. I'm excited. Again, yeah, congrats to Alex.
Yeah,
Huge feat. We can't gloss over it in terms of what he's done and how active he's been, just like what you said.
yeah,
Yuri, he's a champion in my eyes. He'll bounce back as well. Yeah, I
absolutely.
just feel like it was not his night because he was. Yeah, I mean, what an opponent, DJ, to run into, and you're welcome. You're welcome back. But bout.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, man. Like it was. Look, it is what it is. I mean, it was honourable of him to relinquish that title and come back and take the toughest challenge out there. Um, with obviously Jamal Hill being sidelined due to injury, speedy recovery to him. But yeah, look, agree.
Yeah,
Everything about this matchup was great. Yeah,
yeah, and obviously, we say it again. I was in the building between him and Glover, arguably one of the greatest bouts ever. Like,
still, yeah,
to be in that, to be in the building. Fortunate enough to be in Singapore. I forget which event it was, but what number. But yeah, we'll continue this conversation about these
yeah,
two and moving forward, and yeah, Jamal Hill, what's next. But the co-main event, another reason why this was an 8.5 for me.
oh man.
What were your initial thoughts after reflecting now on this short notice? It was the Jones Stipe replacement, DJ.
Absolutely, man. Like, I mean, there's a lot of sentiments that I had about this matchup when it got announced once Jon Jones got injured. My initial thought was, man, I love this matchup. I've been dying to see this matchup, but why on short notice, right? Are we wasting talent? Because this is a fight that deserves a full camp to be able to see who's the best. Now, more so for Aspinall than for Pavlovich, because we know Pavlovich was the backup fighter for this fight. Right. So he obviously was training as a backup fighter, which again confuses me because if they were always going to keep that Jon Jones Stipe matchup, regardless of you know someone pulled out. It didn't make much sense to have one backup fighter. Then maybe they should have had a backup fight. Anyway, in hindsight, obviously, uh, so Pavlovich obviously had a training camp. He was training to be the backup fighter. For Aspinall, not so much. So for me, the initial response was, and now we'll talk about it. We definitely need to talk about it on sort of leading up to that phone call to take up the short notice fight. Some of the things that he was saying was mind blowing, and for us to be able to see him do what he did was amazing. But yeah, look, I was thinking, wow, man, are we throwing Aspinall to the wolves here? Then obviously the fight got announced, and then the interim title got thrown in, and I was again my thing was why, like well, if Jon Jones is not going to come back and fight the winner of this fight, what's the purpose of that interim title? And I think that question's still up in the air. But man, things are different now. The scene is different, right? I mean, the start to this fight, from the walk-ins to the cage, everything. Tom Aspinall looked cool, calm, collected. Pavlovich again, laser focused, his usual self, and I was like, well, we're gonna have a good fight. Like, these are two of the best heavyweights. Pavlovich has been on a run. Aspinall has been on a run. Both finishers, heavyweights, next level, next generation heavyweights. Aspinall's speed is unprecedented. He's had so many finishes in that first round. Had adversity with that injury, comes back, runs through Marcin Tybura. Then is now contending. Pavlovich, arguably the scariest guy in that division, after Francis Ngannou, to fight for the interim title. So, man, scene was set. The stare down happens in the beginning of the cage when the refs talking. I think it was Dan Murgiata, laying out the rules, and you see something very unusual that we've never seen in fights. Complete opposite to that, the stare down between Yuri and Alex. You get Tom Aspinall and Pavlovich both having each other, like putting their hand on each other's shoulder for the entirety of it. It was very unusual. It was a lot of. It was not unusual in an awkward way. It was unusual to see. Spoke volumes of the respect they had, and I think even the lead up, man. That's another thing we got to touch on for all four of these guys on the main and the core main. It was just tons of respect. Even that press conference was amazing. A lot of respect, and it was just a true warrior spirit. That's what you felt. Fight starts. Pavlovich obviously is coming forward. Aspinall's moving quite fast. man, and then oof, I knew this wasn't going out of that first round. Like that, I was sure of. But I, in my mind, was thinking Pavlovich is going to get it done, given the preparation he's had. My God, man! Like Tom Aspinall is not only as good as what they say he is, he's better than that, right? He is one of the best heavyweights, right? So what he did, and that sequence, to finish Pavlovich a 1-2, wobbled him, and then 1-2 again, followed him to the floor. Absolute scenes, no questions, no doubts, done, dusted, interim heavyweight champion of the world. I'm glad they put the interim title on because that performance deserved the title, deserved the championship status, and then finding out the adversities that he had faced in that training camp, we actually find out he never actually was able to train for this fight. He had a back injury at the lead up. He was on vacation, took the fight. Everything he said leading up to the fight, I really like Tom Aspinall, man. Like the way he said, I'm not going to win anything sitting on the couch, so I'm going to take it. And he took a huge risk, right? Huge risk, same level of risk that Alexander Volkanovski took. If he had got flatlined or something, we're probably going to look at him not being able to get this shot again for a while, right? Comes in, does his job, absolutely amazing to see. It was emotional, and then the story after that, everything was beautiful about this man. Like, and I think the respect again shown afterwards. I was very happy for Tom Aspinall. I'm very happy that he's able to call himself the champion. Rightfully so, he is a champion, and I think, to be honest, man, I think we spoke about this off air. I don't know if we are going to get to see Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. I know Dana is saying that fight will be preserved, but as you can see, Stipe seems to be injured too, right? Like, how long before we get to see this fight? And if Jon Jones is coming back for one more, I'd rather see the heavyweight unification bout between him and Tom Aspinall, the best of the next generation against the greatest of all time. I think that's got a better storyline. Not to say, obviously it's a legendary matchup. If Jon Jones can do both, man, sign me up. Get him to see fight Stipe. Always down for that. I want to see both of them healthy, 100% fighting each other. Absolutely, I'm down for that. And then also, if Jon Jones fights Tom Aspinall, I'm very much down for that too. So yeah, man, like I think some great scenes up there in the heavyweight division as well. I think Tom Aspinall, to be honest, enters into stardom after that performance. Um, Alex Pereira is already a big star. And I think Tom Aspinall now enters into that stratosphere. What he did, the amount of people that were watching this fight, and now that the story is public on what he had to go through, everything there, stuff of superstars, and he's definitely now one. And I think next time he fights, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot more people, tuning in.
Yeah, the big UK event next
Yeah,
year, no doubt. Dana was asked a million times, it seems, in the presser about the
yeah,
UK and now having two champions and being
yeah,
able to return. But yeah, man, all I can do is echo what you just said, DJ, about it's the beauty of MMA and why we love it, because you and I, we've been doing this for a minute, but we've also been talking well before that, and we remember when Curtis Blades, Tom Aspinall was supposed to take place, and it seems like those two were kind of underdogs, both on the come up, and to think back, and how far Aspinall's come, only
yeah,
the true believers would see where he's at right now. But not only has he done it, but he's done it emphatically by defeating a brick wall in Pavlovich, who seemed like
yeah,
he was destined to fight Jon Jones at some point, and now he's come off second best from a huge
yeah,
blow, a knockout, and I think we haven't seen the last of him. Cyril Gahn has jumped online and he's done a
yeah,
call out as well.
yeah.
Like, how do you see, like, what's next? Because yeah, I agree with you with the Jones Stipe, but what I do want to say about that is I think the UFC seem committed to doing everything they can, to waiting as long as they possibly can. And look,
Yeah,
how long do you wait? How long is too long? I think we'll probably wait until the middle of next year, or we'll see
yeah,
how his physical therapy is doing, and then we
yeah,
might know more. But yeah, look, Stipe is just older. He's old, and he's not active, and he's doing firefighting, and he seems banged up himself now. So yeah, I won't be surprised if you're right. But
yeah.
put some money
I
on it.
mean, I do believe the odds are stacked against Stipe, and the longer it takes, the harder it's going to be for him. Like again, like you pointed out, ring rust. I mean, since he lost to Francis Ngannou, he hasn't fought. And look, you can argue the same for Jon Jones as well. But like the the period that he's away from fights is not going to be that long. And we've seen with Jon Jones, ring rust doesn't apply to legends, I guess. Because having said that, Stipe is a legend too. Let's not get that twisted. But yeah, look, man, it's just I think if anything at this rate, we'll probably see it if that fight takes place, maybe the International Fight Week or Madison Square Garden. There is a fan in me who wants to see Jon Jones fight at Madison Square Garden, right? So I don't know if that'll come into fruition. If that's the case, I think personally, Jon Jones needs to do two fights. One to fight Stipe and then fight Tom Aspinall. It all comes down to timing. When is he going to be ready? Because I think while we can make Tom Aspinall wait for a little bit, keeping him waiting any longer than I guess 7 to 8 months or even at worst 12 months, I think that should be the limit. But again, what does he do though? Till then, does he defend his interim title, which is very unusual, right? So yeah, look,
Well, I think
it's very.
yeah, I think just quickly adding, I think Jones doesn't want to fight anyone else but Stipe, and we know
Yeah.
Stipe doesn't want to fight anyone but Jones. So, with that said, I think I could see both retiring. I think they both
Yeah,
don't like. He's got enough money. It's
yeah,
all about legacy for them, and he doesn't want
yeah,
that blip on his at the very end of his career. If he was to lose to Aspinall, I think it's a
yeah,
safe way out. What do you
yeah.
think?
Yeah, look, I, I do think Jon Jones is good, man. I think he beats anyone, to be honest, right? I think while I'm excited to see them match up against Aspinall, like my early prediction is that Jon Jones still beats Aspinall. Jon Jones is just a generational fighter. There's only one, right? He's one in whatever the population of the world is. But the thing is, it's just that the intrigue of wanting to see it, the intrigue of seeing someone great as Jon Jones being able to, claim victories over people from multiple generations, multiple eras. Right, that's just a legendary stuff in itself. Now, I think with Jon Jones, he's got the stardom, he's got the legend goat status. I don't think he needs a belt. He's like Conor McGregor. You don't need a belt to showcase a Jon Jones fight. I think what may or could have happened is not to strip. I don't think it's disrespectful to talk about stripping against someone like a legend like Jon Jones, but it's just saying you elevate Tom Aspinall to the champion, and they have a legend or a goat status fight between the greatest heavyweight of all time against the greatest of all time, which is Stipe and Jones when they're ready to fight. That way, the title's not held up, right? Tom Aspinall can continue to do what he's doing on this side, right? And then Jon Jones and Stipe takes place just as a main event, 5 rounds. We get to see that's legendary in itself, right? You get to see who the best is out of them two, and then if either one of them choose to stay and hey, you know what? Let's go. Like, let me fight your current heavyweight champ because I'm the best. There you go. I don't think neither of those guys need a title to validate how good they are. Right. So I think that would have made the division move a bit. But again, there's a lot of thought that goes into these kind of things. And I know the UFC, especially the last two events, had to think a lot on the go with all these changes happening. So, man, I've got faith in the UFC to sort of work things out and do the right things. But
Yep, yep.
long story short, I'd love to see Jon Jones fight again. Do I like to see Jon Jones and Stipe fight? Yes, provided they're both 100%. Do I love to see Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall fight? Absolutely, yes. So yeah, long story short, I just want to see Jon Jones fight.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, the injury was horrendous. I can't imagine what it would be like if you and I were chatting right now, discussing what happened between Jones and Stipe. I'm
Yeah,
buzzing thinking about it. Two of my goats ever. Obviously, they are in terms of one division and one sport. But
yeah.
quickly before we just talk about the rest of the card, Pavlovich now with Garn and what else is happening in the heavyweight? What do you see?
I think what's his name? Tom Aspinall had a good suggestion for Gane to fight Almeida. Look, having said that, the Almeida did have like a lackluster performance. While it was a dominant win, uh, there was questions raised, right? I think he needs to quell all that doubt, and then fight, go stick with the original matchup, which is Curtis Blades. It was meant to fight Curtis Blades that fell through, right? So they need to keep Curtis Blades and Almeida and continue that fight, keep that matchup. And I think Pavlovich should fight Gane, still Gane. I think that sort of is a good fight, good matchup. A title contender with an ex-title contender, right? I think he beat who did he beat in France? Sugar had a good performance in France not too long ago, but who was the opponent? I can't. Was it
Volkov, was it?
was it Volkov? I need to find this out now. Let me find out. Um, it's on the tip of my tongue. I just can't. Let me see. Shogun.
Yeah, there's been so much happen since then that my mind's just going blank. We've seen banger
Spivak.
after.
He fought Spivak, so yeah. So yeah, look, he had a good performance, but Spivak's a victory over Spivak, I don't think warrants, especially having lost two title fights. I don't think warrants, as much as I like Silgan, doesn't warrant another immediate title shot against Aspinall. So I think he needs to fight Pavlovich. And if he can get through Pavlovich, then it's a different story.
Yep, I like it. Great
Yeah,
stuff as always. But yeah, DJ, you said 8.5. I think you agreed with me. What
yeah,
what else made you like the rest of this card, and what else stood
man. Look,
out? Obviously, the Frenchman in the lightweight is
yeah,
getting huge buzz.
man. I mean, the whole main card was pretty good. I actually thoroughly enjoyed the main card. Diego Lopez is slowly becoming another massive star for the organization from taking on that short notice fight against Mosvar Evlev. Obviously lost, but like the considering who he fought, given that was his first fight, and all these kind of things into consideration, I think that was quite impressive. He got a lot of fans then, and then he's had it's all been finished since then, right? And I think even before he got to the cage, the reception for him was amazing, and he lived up to it with the performance. Um, a great knockout round one. There was a lot of round one finishes, man. So it's all main card was round one or round two. I liked Jessica Andrade, Mackenzie Dern fight as well in the women's strawweight division. Although I gotta say that the power difference was quite evident. Mackenzie Dern was having a bit of success in the beginning, but I think every time Andrade connected, it was just a drastic reaction. Either Dern just goes to the canvas, or like she was finding it hard to handle that power, and I think that kind of raises a lot more question in terms of how would you fare when you progress further up that food chain. I think Mackenzie Dern was going really well. It was a tough matchup, and Andrade had a few things to prove as well, coming off of a few losses. I think she gave a good account of herself. But yeah, man, that was a second round TKO. Like you said, I left this guy to the last, Benoit Saint Denis, the Frenchman. Man, he's been impressing me for a while now. And I think his story, and I mean, being ex-military and all that, his sort of mentality. I think he approaches fights like he approaches like as if he's going to war. And I think, man, the performances have been nothing short of stellar. He fought Matt Favola, who's on a good streak himself, and first round finish. He knocked out the local boy. It was almost a soccer kick like knockout, and then he follows him down and ground and pound him. Crazy, man. Like, I mean, enemy territory. And who he fought, pretty good. I know he's calling for a top 5 matchup. I like to see him sort of like not progress that fast yet. Maybe someone top 10, because at the moment he's not ranked. So I'd like to see him ranked somewhere, maybe just outside the top 10, fighting someone on the lower end of the top 10, just to cement it. I mean, we've seen this in the past. Sometimes fast tracking people may not be the best option. So yeah, like if they manage him well, again another big talent to that stacked lightweight division.
Yeah, big time. I'm excited for you, for like you, to see him continue.
Yeah,
And yeah, the huge following, and I think they'll be back in France. Dana confirmed. They're planning on doing the big Mexican Independence Day at the
yep,
Sphere on Mexican
yep.
Independence Day. You would think a Mexican athlete would be the main event, but I think that would be perfect for a Jones Stipe if they were to be ready by then,
Hey,
maybe sooner.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think the Mexican, the whole Mexican independence and everything. If you look at the brand, the Mexican brand, it's built on fighting. Right. So while having a Mexican fighter headline will be amazing, it could be anyone legendary. I mean, legendary show again, the sphere, all that's connected to that. Yeah, you could, man. Like, I think there's a lot that can happen between now and then. But yeah, hey, we might even have a Mexican champ by then. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to wait
Y-
and see. Diego Lopez, Mexican, but is on track to, by that time, I reckon if he continues what he's doing, I think he's going to be up there as one of, the most impressive guys to contend in that card as well. So yeah, it's a lot going on, and I think there were no locations weren't revealed for the Feb and the March card, but obviously January is in Canada.
And DJ, talk about bold predictions. You gave us one. My bold prediction is they'll hit up Africa next
Yeah,
year. I think they will with all this Francis thing. It'd be the perfect, sort of answer counter or whatever it may be you want to call it for
yeah,
Dana, the UFC, to finally, while Izzy and while you've got Kamaru who's still active and whatever. I mean, the time is now. They've been talking about it forever. I think
yeah,
they've got Drickus. They've got to get an
yeah.
African show next year. What do you think?
Yeah, man, like absolutely. I think there's a lot of things again that could happen between then and now. So Drickus is fighting Strickland in January. Man, that Canada card's getting really good. We've got Rakic versus Pavlovich. Um, so yeah, look, if Drickus wins, there is that storyline while Adesanya lost to Strickland, right? There is that still strong storyline of that genuine animosity between those two, which can eventuate into a title fight. If Drickus is able to win the title, there's a strong case we could see Israel Adesanya coming back. One, to entertain their rivalry. Two, to reclaim the belt, and then maybe he can defend it against Strickland afterwards. But yeah, it's just quite interesting there. Or UFC could, and this is for UFC Africa, by the way, or they could go with, okay, well, we're going to do the trilogy, Pereira, Adesanya, and this time for the light heavyweight title in Africa. So there's a lot of things that could happen. But yeah, look, I do agree with you. I think the UFC and Dana White have been speaking about this for a while, and I think they're probably going to try and push it harder than ever, trying to have this event done.
Yeah, definitely. And he mentioned Brazil. I could see the Pereira, whatever one of his recent defenses in Brazil, because
Yep.
without
Yep.
Nunes, it's time that they go back down there. Without
True.
Figueiredo, I
Mm.
mean, am I missing anything? Is there any other Brazilian champs? We haven't seen obviously a big challenger. We haven't seen what's his name in the welterweight. Um, Man, I'm drawing a blank.
Hamza. Is
No,
he
the
a Brazilian?
Brazilian. Yep.
Oh, Gilbert Burns
Yeah, Gilbert Burns. Yep.
and Charles Oliveira.
Yes. How could I forget?
Yep.
But although that's probably going to take place in Abu Dhabi, I feel like when they do that
Okay.
again, or Vegas.
Yeah, I think they'll do it sooner. I think they'll do it because Islam's asking for a fight before Ramadan, and I think they will make that work. I think we will see that fight next. It's not going to be in Abu Dhabi. I think it'll be somewhere in the US. I feel.
Yep. And yeah, before we wrap up, DJ, we haven't mentioned this since it was actually announced and confirmed. Dricus Duplessis, Sean Strickland. What comes to your mind when that was first announced?
If you had told me this is a fight for the title a year ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But hey, you cannot deny what Sean Strickland accomplished, and I think we've spoken about it at length in our recap for that fight card. And look, we knew Rickers is that next person to challenge for the day. You hold a win against Robert Whitaker, you should be guaranteed a title shot. And I'm glad that worked itself because I think Hamzat still probably I would like to see him fight another middleweight before going for the title for two reasons. One, to validate his spot. Two, to see how he actually goes because you don't want to have your worst performance in a title fight, right? So I'm excited to see this. It's going to be carnage. I think anytime Sean Strickland's involved, press conferences, the lead up's going to be nuts. Drickus seems like a guy who doesn't put up with any nonsense. I know he's got a win over Whitaker, but man, like it's going to be a lot much more close fight than people think. I think not a lot of people are giving Strickland a chance. I think, like, with his conditioning, we've traditionally seen Brickers fade as the fight goes, right? With that big muscles of his and everything. And Strickland just gets stronger and he maintains that pace. And I think it's going to give him a lot of trouble, Brickers, that is. So I'll be interested to see how that fight pans out. But am I excited? Absolutely, man.
Yeah, yeah. Likewise, man. I could see Strickland pulling it off, but I really do give Drickus a huge opportunity because power. Yeah,
Yeah.
Strickland was able to come forward against Izzy. Had a great game plan, and credit to him, worthy champion. But yeah, Drickus just looked really scary against Whitaker. Anyone that can
Yeah.
make, anyone that I've seen Whitaker dominate for so long, kind of move on the back foot, makes me kind of think that he can do that to Strickland. But it's going to be
Absolutely.
yeah, fireworks collide. Anything else before you wrap up?
Nah, man, I think I'm excited for the Rakic Blahovic fight as well. I think that adds to that storyline on in that light heavyweight division, especially for Rakic. And I think if Rakic is able to be successful, he's been a big player in that division, but unfortunately injuries have plagued him, and he's been away from the game for a while. He's a really good fighter, really good ground game as well. So, yeah, man, like I think his addition into that light heavyweight division, or re-addition, I should say, is going to make things a lot more exciting.
But don't go anywhere, anyone. The rest of the year, some huge events are still to come. A huge fight night between Alan and Craig this weekend with our Vic boy Jake Matthews as the co-main. Then Dariush Sarukian, Dan Hooker, Bobby Green in that
It's a
one
big one.
with Figueiredo, Rob Font, Sean Brady. I mean, that's a huge fight night the week after that. And then,
It's a big
yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah,
agree.
yeah, give us your thoughts.
Man, look, these fight nights are looking great. Excited for Matthews next week, or this coming weekend, I should say. Man, but that big one, UFC Fight Night, the Darius Sarukian one, that's a top of the food chain matchup. And you got the core main, for all combat sports lovers. Like, it's a striking feast for anyone. Two tough individuals who do not take a back step. So excited for that. Green versus Hooker. Rob Font, man, like, he's been great. And he's an elite striker, welcoming Davis and Figueiredo into that bantamweight division. You got Sean Brady finally, making his walk back to the cage, taking on Kelvin Gastelum, returning Kelvin Gastelum to the welterweight division. That's another big one. So there's a few men, and Khalil Roundtree is one of my favorite fighters. I like his story as well. He's fighting in that card too. Very excited to see him perform, and hopefully he has a good night too.
Yeah. On that note, what happened to that dude who The Rock bought a house? The
Oh
the
yeah,
the
like
the the, the underdog dude.
he hasn't fought since. Like, it's um, but yeah, look, again, there's going to be a lot more excitement when he fights as well, because of all that surrounding him and all the eyeballs that have been brought in by The Rock. So yeah, we'll be able to. I know the last I saw was he had brought his family to his new house, and he was very happy, and very happy for him, man. Like, I think being able to do that to your family is great. So yeah, it's a great story there too. And
Yep.
much thanks to The Rock.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, loving the feel good story and the vibes. But yeah, before we wrap up, I just want to mention UFC 296 December to finish the year. This is arguably in all my years the most stacked card I've ever seen. Talking
Yeah,
about Ian Gary Luque as the final main card fight. Ferguson Pimblett, Rachmanov Stephen Wonderboy Thompson,
yeah.
Royval Pantoja, Colby Leon. I mean, and then the prelims, Josh Emmett, who was just fighting for an interim title in Australia earlier this year. Garbrandt, Kelleher, Casey O'Neill on the prelims. I mean,
Man,
yeah,
it's. I mean, look, they've saved the best to the last, and we spoke about this continuously. The last three cards, from the moment they're going to announce, were great. Even after all the change up for the Abu Dhabi and the Madison Square Garden card, they still were stacked cards. And I think if these matchups stay intact for the December card, I think, with everything into consideration, I think, and we'll have to wait to see how the performance is. But on paper, probably going to be the best card of the year. But man, like you said, top to bottom is just stacked. So yeah,
yep. Let's end the year with fireworks. CT and DJ. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Catch you.